And we need confirmation of the agenda. Do I have a mover? Councillor Vlad and Councillor Syke. All in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, if any. Councillor Hallahan.
Yes, I have one on the Huron Pioneer Thrashers.
That you will be abstaining from
Yes,
that.
I'm
Okay.
director.
Okay, thank you. Moving into the consent agenda. Is there anything, Councillor Syke?
Yeah, I'd like to pull out 4.2.3.3, the tanker 8 repairs for discussion, please.
Okay. Okay, you got that, and nothing else needs to be pulled out? Okay. Do we, motion to pass all the others except the one that we pulled out? Councillor Syke, Councillor Knott, all in favor? Carried. Okay, that was 4.2.3.2, or no, the 4.2.3.3. Okay. Then we've had the report. Do you have anything extra to add, David, or what was written?
Well, the reality is that we've got a truck that from the very first day it was delivered has been a problem truck, and I know Jim was asking me about that. I said, "Is it the truck you thought it was?" And from the very, I mean, like the night it was delivered, the truck was a problem truck. And the net result of the initial delivery is the entire truck was stripped down and rebuilt and rewired. And we've been running it now. It's 4 years old. But the problem is that all metal fire tankers have a liner on the inside, and the liner is coming off in chunks. The wiring in this truck has always been problematic from the initial delivery to the rebuild until today. But it's an essential part of what we require to deliver water to our fire grounds. To say I'm the least bit thrilled about spending this kind of money on this truck would be totally incorrect. I'm not the least bit thrilled about spending this kind of money. But the reality is that we don't have capital to replace this truck for another 8 years. And if we don't do this type of expenditure on this truck, this will wind up costing us because at some point some of this will flake off, get sucked into one of our fire pumpers, and then we're into even more significant repairs than this. When this first came up, we moved $8,000 into our budget. I didn't know what it was going to cost, but with $8,000, it was going to be something. When we look at this, I asked another chief who now his career as a fire chief, but formerly owned an auto body business, what he would do, and what they proposed is exactly what he said he would do if he owned his truck. So it gives me some confidence besides what I think that somebody that's in fire business but probably would have been in this business would do the same thing. End of the day, I can guarantee council this is the end of the costly repairs on this truck because it has been ongoing since delivery. And the real bottom line is that when the fire board purchased this truck, it was a very low price vehicle. The vendor had issues, and in the end, I would suggest the savings on the front end have probably more than been spent since we took delivery, about keeping it on the road and keeping it safe for service.
Councillor Syke?
So David, when you are putting this lining in, or it's a replacement liner?
Well, what happened is that at this point in the life of the truck, they're gonna blast off the existing liner because they can't put something on top of it,
Right.
because if they do, it'll just flake off with it. And rather than put in another liner, which is even more money than this, they're going to paint it, because the paint they'll put on should last us for the next 8 years. But in order to do that, they have to, first it's confined space. Secondly, it's not a sandblast, it's some sort of shell blasting, so I don't know if that's shots or shells. But they have to pull out all the valves, all the stuff before they blast it, put it all back together, and then put our stuff back in. So it's quite the endeavor. We prefer to do it through Darch just because the fire stuff that goes along with this needs to be dealt with and looked after. One of the nice things about dealing with a sort of a top drawer service facility, they give us the card of the people who are going to do the work. And so if you don't trust our numbers, I think we're padding, and feel free to call, because we're not hiding or padding their numbers on your quote, which I appreciate. But for me, it's just sickening.
So really, but the ending question is that it's not a replacement liner. You're basically taking the lining off
And putting in
and putting it on epoxy paint or whatever they used to get us through the 8 years to get us to. That's the intention. Is that
That's
to get us to 2020.
I'd actually hope to go just bare metal and run it, that they said you won't get the full weight out of it. So the next most cost effective is the epoxy, and they're for sure we'll get 8. We will not get some people try and run their tankers for 25 years. We will not get 25 years out of this truck. Our budgeted replacement cycle is 20, and we'll have to, at 20 years, be ready to replace the entire truck. As an adjunct to this, just so you're aware, the most recent tankers we bought are composite poly tanks, which means that the tank is a plastic composite, and it gets us away from all of this stuff. And a little bit more money than this, but it's a lifetime tank, so we don't run into these issues.
Okay, Councillor Knott.
Just David, are they giving us any kind of warranty on this work? I don't see anything in the quote, so.
No, considering the issues we've had with this truck, I think almost everybody's reluctant to give warranty on most anything. Honestly, Bill, the list of issues with this truck would fill a page in its 12-year life, and there may be stuff beyond this that could affect the work that they do, such as bad welds and other issues. So they're probably not going to warranty this for too much, just because of the history of the truck and the nature of the truck.
Councillor Gamble. Deputy Reeve.
When this truck was delivered, it actually was too wide to even go down the roads. It did not meet the standards to be able to put this truck on the road. So they had to take it back and rebuild a whole bunch of the things before we could ever use this truck. So as soon as I saw this, I thought, oh, I thought he got rid of it.
That would be the suggestion from the mechanics, is if we could afford to, they'd recommend disposing of the truck, but we're just not in that position. And that wasn't a buy another one of our trucks comment. They just said, you know, we've dealt with this truck since before FTNH.
So the other question I have, and I am assuming that this is the conversation about utilization of equipment and stuff, is that we can't go without this truck. Like we couldn't go without. If we did dispose of it, are we reducing or maximizing our risk for our contracts and all that other stuff that we have for our fire service?
Well, that's a very fair question. The reality of it is, the reason why Blythe runs 2 water tankers and most stations run one, is that at this point in time, we require tankers, and case in point, not that a week and a half ago, we require tankers for in-town work as well as in the country. If and when Blythe's water supply system in terms of pumping capacity in the reservoir gets up to a higher standard, it might well be the case that at the end of this 20-year life, if our water system's been upgraded, that this truck is not a replacement. We don't look for a replacement for it. But at this point in time, we need it for in town and out of town calls in the Forth area.
I'm following up with this, the whole new well that's going into Bly. Is that, if this new well goes in, that's not gonna help the fact of this water, like you're saying, there's not enough water if they decide to hook up to a hydrant, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, there are two parts to the water supply. How many gallons per minute can you get?
Yeah.
And then how long can you flow that water? So right now our challenge is on both sides of the coin. Adding the pump will increase the flow. In other words, how many gallons per minute you can get to a point. But until we have a reservoir, such as Wingham has a water tower, or a reservoir that's larger, you know, we can't sustain a large enough flow for a lot of the structures in town.
Thank you, David.
Okay. Do I have a motion coming forward? Councillor Hallahan? You're moving?
Yes.
And Deputy Reeve Campbell? Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Carried. Moving to 5.1, Wyndham Town Hall Theater for presentation. Doug, you're heading it up.
Yes, sir,
Thank you.
Mr. Reeve. Arnold Reeve. This will be a short presentation. William Town Hall Theater is simply reporting on its fundraising to date, and you've got that in your package, I imagine. And so to date, we have raised, including the Trillium grant, and including a $5,000 pledge that we can ask for pretty much any time. We have raised $90,626. As you can see on the bottom of that page, we have a number of grant applications in the works. Unfortunately, our Bruce Power application, we received word that it was declined, grant application for $12,500. We still have a Libro Prosperity grant in the works for $10,000, and should hear about that in May, June.
I think so, yeah.
I think May, June.
June,
And Blackburn is going to be in the fall, an application for $10,000. And we have to approach yet the Lucknow Kinsmen with their Music in the Fields. So we have a number of additional grant applications. Our goal, as you know, earlier on when we first started, was $120,000. And so we're only $30,000 away from reaching the goal. And we feel pretty confident that we're on the home stretch now. We should get there quite easily. And we are in support of the staff report, which you have received, which you have separately. So the committee has reviewed and is totally in support with the staff report as outlined.
Okay, thank you. Moving to 5.2, Henry Van Heesch.
Notes here. Good.
Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Henry Van Heesch, and I'm in many ways very blessed. Number one, I have a business in this beautiful township, and and one in a neighboring township as well. And I live just outside of town limits, and it's just a beautiful area and a good place to live. And tonight, I'll be speaking to you about the wonderful airport, our wonderful airport. And I'll keep it brief. Brief Vincent, members of council, press, and those in the audience. Tonight, I'm not going to speak about me learning to fly here at our wonderful airport, or how about your parts, Canada, yet still only in a small way is really benefiting from this airport like other industries. Or how wonderful our Air Cadet program is, the Air Cadet gliding program. With about 38 flying days per year, they serve 13 squadrons of groups of young men, boys, and girls that come out every summer from now till the fall. They do about 1,000 flights. And there's around 600 cadets that visit this area through this time period. Cadets that come into town and buy food at restaurants, fast food places, grocery stores to support the town of Wingham. And that the Air Cadet program paid over the last 5 years about $20,000 in rental fees and purchased more than $37,000 worth of fuel. Because I don't have to, because council is fully aware of that. After all, council has done their homework. Reeve Vincent, you and council are fully aware how the town received the last grant provided by the Ontario government to build a community airport. You also know how much money was received and how it got its name, the Richard W. Lee Van Airport. You see, the Wingham Town Council back in about 1995 made a decision to build a community airport. A community airport where we can all benefit. They acted on suggestions and presentations by one of the 3 most renowned and respected families in this area has ever seen and been blessed with. I refer to you about the Lloyds, the Cruikshanks, and the Lee Vans. The Richard Lee Van Airport, a modern and adequate asset, sitting ready to provide the basis of flying requirements for new industry, to be established not just here in Wingham, but also in neighboring municipalities. This airport is centrally located between Kincardine, Goderich, Hanover, Stratford. And unlike Goderich and Kincardine, the Richard Lee Van Airport is the only one that does not have its back up against the lake. Council knows, right? Council has done their homework. The Lee Van Airport has an airport commission, which I'm part of. I'm proud to be part of. It's basically a social group that meets several times a year to discuss items like promotional brochures, bulletin boards, and several members, including those from council, have substantial practical experiences in their respective professions and businesses. But advice from those members seem to be ignored, and matters referred to staff for further studies, more wasted time, and ultimately decisions. Let's make use of every asset and dollar available. We have talked to many people, including airport managers, councillors from different municipalities, pilots involved with other airports, and they are aware of the various degrees of financial situations that their airports are having, the struggles that they're having. And they are envy of us because we're so close to the break-even point. Most airports of our caliber have an operating budget of $100,000 or more. We're doing very, very well. So we commend, as a committee, this council and that of Morris Turnbury in hiring of Mr. Molenhouse as Director of Public Works. It's finally a step in the right direction, in mending some fences, and maybe even take down some old ones that are really in the way. The townships should be working together in many, many aspects, not just on the airport. It would be advantageous to all of us here, to all of us living here, to all of us working here, to all of us looking for work around here. To that end, this council has invited a member of Morris Turnbury to sit on our committee, and we hope that we can encourage Morris Turnbury and other municipalities to expand their interest and support of this airport. To conclude, because I told you I would keep it brief, because you've done all your homework, you have all the stats, you have all the figures. I feel, we feel as a committee, that it is imperative to this township that it continues to operate this airport, pursue aviation-related businesses, such as maintenance, shops, to locate here, expedite and encourage requests by pilots and businesses to build their hangars, to bring in more revenue, to get to the break-even point and even make some money. And whatever we do, improve aspects of all efficiency and maintenance. We lost so much already. Hangars were built elsewhere. And council did their homework. So they knew. So they did their homework, so they know the enormous cost of paying out the hangar owners, removing the buildings in the runway, building a new facility for Orange, because that's how council works. They have it all figured out. Reeve Vincent. Orange was here 11 times so far this year. Last year was 19 times in total. We're already at 11. 6 times in the last 3 weeks alone. If nothing else, if you don't care, council doesn't care about economic development, future growth, and more businesses. For that reason alone, this airport must remain open. Because if I look around this room, we all have loved ones. And when it comes down to it, when there is an emergency, we want to get them to a facility where they can be taken care of. So think about it. What is it worth to all of you here? Lives saved, or a few potholes filled on some streets, or sidewalks dusted off in the wintertime, like some people suggest. How sad it is. Because, Reeve Vincent, council members, by the time everything is sold and all your bills are paid for, that's what all the money you're going to have left. So tonight, and I mean tonight, council must decide either sell, because that's what it is, divest. It's a nicer word, but sell is really what we want to do, or keep this airport. Once and for all, and for heaven's sakes, put something in place. As the previous council started in '95, that this topic never, ever comes up again. Reeve Vincent, what is it worth to the town of Ringwood? What is it worth? Thank you.
Okay. And moving to 5.3, Chris Van Kutenhout.
Good evening, Mr. Reeves and council. My name is Chris Van Kutenhout, and I'm the owner of Apex Helicopters. I apologize, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not a public speaker, I'm a pilot. 4.5 years ago, I drove through a snowstorm to come and introduce myself and the business to council. To let you know that Apex Helicopters was moving to the airport to conduct air charter and aerial work services. At that time, I made a 25-year commitment to all of you when I signed my land lease for my hangar. Since that time, I made further efforts to reassure you of my commitments as I signed another lease just this past year. And I've just recently submitted plans for a third and much larger hangar this year. Unfortunately, due to the current circumstances in the airport feasibility study and the uncertainty of the future of the airport, I have had to halt my business growth in Wingham to a certain degree. My purpose for being here tonight is not to rehash old news or past issues, but to bring up some strong points and key information to council and the general public that may or may not already be known. My desire is to help with making an educated decision about the future of the airport. For the record, and may I say, my recommendations to council and the taxpayers of Wingham and surrounding area is that they retain the airport as an asset and put more focus into its development. The following are my points and suggestions. I will give a brief explanation as I go, and you feel free to stop me and ask questions at any time. Number one, Apex Helicopters would not be here in Wingham if the airport didn't already exist. Apex Helicopters alone injects $111,000 per year into the local economy and has done so for the last 4.5 years. That's a very conservative number. And that equals, if you do your math, almost $500,000 that we've injected alone in the last 4.5 years. Apex Helicopters does not need an airport to operate out of, but we believe in the vital role that the airport serves the community, and thus the reason for choosing to make it home. If you take away the airport, Apex is going with it. I cannot afford to put down my roots here in Wingham if you are not going to commit to me like I have to you. Before I can expand further, I need the certainty of knowing that the airport will be here for long term. We need to put this to rest, and we need to put to rest tonight. Just this past year, Apex Helicopters and surrounding area came together in mid-October to participate in a charity event that we at Apex Helicopters started. The end result was that many families in the area that could never afford to make or take a ride in a helicopter were able to do so while helping support a great cause. In one day, and because you had an airport here, we raised enough money to build 9.5 houses in a third world country. That's 9.5 families that now have a roof over their head, all because Wingham had an airport. Did you know, council, that some doctors that serve the Wingham Hospital come from Toronto and KW on a weekly basis, fly here and ride their bike to the hospital to do specialty work? If the airport closes and we don't come up with a solution for medevac to land, what will you say when it's one of your own that doesn't make it because we took a short-term gain for a long-term loss? I spent a lot of time at the airport. I have a cold. I spend a lot of time at the airport, and a lot of times it's well into the wee hours of the morning when I'm here that Orange lands to pick up a shock trauma victim. As I'm writing this, we have had Orange in 6 times in the last week, and already once this week, and it's only Monday. Do we really want to give this asset up over $1,800 lost per year? What is a life worth to us? I'm not the only player at the airport and do not want in any way to come across as such. We need to think about things as a whole and take in the big picture. What is the risk to the taxpayer for keeping the airport here? $1,800? What are the benefits? Medevac, business growth, a place for your kids to learn to fly, the cadets. $111,000 injected into the local economy, and that's just Apex alone, not the Wingham Jets or the cadets, specialized doctors for our hospital, recreational flying, a place to have special events and fundraisers that touch places around the world. You may think that closing the airport and selling the land makes the most sense, but you would be very wrong in my opinion. Have you really sat down, council, and thought through things? If you voted for closing and selling the airport, this is what you would be voting for. If you close the airport, you will need to move or buy out existing contracts. I have my 2 hangars insured at present for $489,000. I know the other hangar that is not owned by me would not be sold for or bought for anything less than $100,000. Also, you would need to build a helipad for Orange to land with a price tag of around $1 million if you wanted to retain that service. I talked to a construction company, and this is a ballpark, this is not a quote from them, but the cost to remove the runway and dispose of the asphalt would be in the neighborhood of $200,000 plus or minus. And like I said, that's not a quote, that was casual conversation. If my math is correct and you sold the land for $2.5 million, you would be only left with $700,000. You lose the air cadets, specialized doctors, the Wingham Jets, recreational pilots who come here just because the airport is here to fly out of. And if you go back to that $700,000 that I told you that you would be left with, and then you go back to what Apex Helicopters injects into the community over 4.5 years, and you took and sold the airport, roughly in 6 years, you would be, you would be in the minus because you'd be without a business here injecting that money into the community. In my conclusion, my recommendation to council and Mr. Reeve is that you keep the airport and continue to operate it as we have in past years with a focus on development. Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead.
Councillor Knott.
I will say, Chris, that I'd like to commend you for your fundraising thing. That was quite the project you did. But I'm going to state now that at one time council asked that the committee that works in the airport come back with recommendations for the future of the airport. At no time, and I've asked for this, and at no time have I ever stated that we would sell the land. In fact, I've been an advocate that if we closed or ceased the airport operations, that we would maintain those lands. Okay. The $1,800 you keep referring to is wrong. Our current budget, if we remove, as I've always requested that we do, the actual income from renting the farmland, our budget this year is a $56,000 loss operating that airport. What I had hoped that the committee would do is come forward and give us a plan, an alternative for you to operate the airport. What I want is for the municipality to cease to operate the airport. Not necessarily that the airport would disappear and that we're going to plow up the runways. I don't know where you ever got that from other than a previous councillor who Mr. Bailey was the one who kept recommending that we sell the property. I don't believe that. The airport itself can be an asset, yes, I'm going to say that, but I'm going to tell you right now, when I asked the cadets before if they needed an official airport to operate their flight program out of, I was told no, as long as they have a place to take off their plane and land it again with their gliders. They don't need an airport. They don't need an officially licensed airport that we're operating today. If we don't sell the land, we have the facilities for Orange to land at. It's a question of how we manage that. Okay? On top of that $56,000, we now find out that the GPS landing system is now going to cost us between $3,000 and $6,000. I believe the figure was, or $5,000 in additional expenses. And that's something that we will now have to take on because the government, again, is not paying for it. In 1995, when they put out this whole program, it was wonderful. The government was funding airports and allowing small municipalities to function that way. That's all changed. That was 21 years ago. This municipality is too small in what I've looked at and the research I've done and spoken to other airport operators and owners, to sustain an airport. When you talk about $100,000 deficits from other municipal airports, I also look at the size of their facilities, and they have way more facilities available that they cannot fill. And they still operate at a $100,000 loss. We're operating at a $60,000 loss with far less facility. This is too expensive for a municipality of our size for the number of people who actually use the airport. Why I don't want to sell the land? Very simply, that's a great asset, that farmland. We can use that to cover our expenses. It gives us an income. What I really wanted to see was your group come forward and say, we'll take over and operate the airport. We'll lease it from you. That would make me happy. Okay? And you, as an operating business, I'm sure that it's actually a pretty good deal, because what do you pay? $1,800 per year for your hangar? Rental, you know, 2 hangars, you want to rent another one? It's relatively inexpensive when I look at the operating costs, and I'm not gonna try and dismantle your business. I mean, you claim that you're injecting $110,000 into our economy, but I see no backup information where you got that from or how you arrived at that. Okay? Jets and cadets, they don't need a legally licensed airport to operate. They simply need a place to land and take off. And if it was a privately operated operation, you could give them that permission to operate out of your facility. Okay? I'm not going to bang on about it, but I'm disappointed about what I've heard. Okay, because all you've done with all the letters, both of you, Henry, you as well, is come and say you just want the status quo. And I'm afraid the status quo to me is not acceptable. So I'm going to suggest that we go back. We had originally intended, I think it was, to put forward a motion to request an RFP from outside, whether it be from your group or any other group that would be interested in operating the airport. And I'm going to suggest that we proceed that way now and make a decision. You want a decision tonight? There's my decision. Let's call for an RFP and get on with it, because obviously your group has not been able to come up with a solution. Let's see if somebody else can. And until we do that, I'm not saying we close the airport. I want to work toward the solution, not just dump everybody. Okay. So at this point in time, I'd like to go and suggest that we ask staff to prepare an RFP for operation of the airport by outside interested parties.
I personally would like to debate.
I want to make a comment too before.
Oh, okay.
I would like to comment on some of the things you talked about here, Chris, especially the working in a third world country. That group that came and asked for money have built 180 homes in El Salvador. And I've been a part of that group. I've been down here 3 times.
And so have I, sir.
And it's a great project. You come home appreciating what you have and what they don't have. I would like to see, and I've talked to Henry about this, if there's any way that you can help us out as a group in the running of the airport. And I know that probably there's areas that we could sit down and we could work on. There has been a time which I thought, oh, we really don't need an airport, but I do see a need for it. And I think we need to work together as a group to work on this together. Okay.
Trevor?
So I share the comment of, you know, I happen to agree with both you, Henry, and you, Chris, your comments about the airport and what it brings to the municipality. But I also have a finance background where I look at Bill's comments about the operating deficit and what it costs this municipality. What I haven't heard yet from is our request, and and maybe Pat's gonna have some conversation about this too, so I'm waiting for some conversation about the county. Where does the county sit in this? Because the taxpayers of North Huron are paying for that airport. It is a county pleasure to have. There's municipalities around North Huron that aren't paying for that airport. We are, as taxpayers in North Huron. So I look at it as not only a municipal asset, but a county asset. So the county should be helping share some of the burden. And we've had some conversations about where does that fit in the county's economic strategy. So, you know, as much as I would like to make a decision tonight to satisfy both of you, I'm not sure we have all that information from the county. And quite frankly, I don't know where Councillor Knott comes and asks for. We've never talked. We've talked about it as a discussion purposes about what our options are if we get all the information. But I'm not in any way, shape, or form right now asking would vote on a proposal from the staff to put an RFP out. I don't have enough information. I don't know where the county sits on this. If the county were to come to me and say, we're out, then it's a different conversation. But right now, it's a county asset too, and they have to be a part of the game as well. And if they're not willing to be a part of the game, conversations need to change. So I think I'll leave it at that, and I'll let Sharon comment on the county part.
Go to Sharon for further information on that.
So I've spoken to the County Economic Development Officer. Pardon me, my voice is almost gone this evening. And they are going to be undertaking a review this summer to determine whether there will be county financial support for Huron County airports. So that work isn't going to start until the summer, but it's part of their economic development strategy to consider that.
So just as a supplement, so, you know, to me, I would love to put the answer to bed to rest and say enough's enough, let's have a conversation. But, you know, I don't think it's fair. I know it's not fair to you, and I totally agree that it's not fair to you to keep dragging this on. But, you know, we have to make it a fiscally responsible decision for both us as the municipal ratepayers, but also as the asset. That's a big standing asset that we have out there. So to me, I'm not going to get pressured into making a decision off the cuff, but these are good information that's come back that should be part of the conversation with all the other reports that we have. So, but there's still information that we need to gather. So I struggle with having to make a decision tonight on something as important as this. And I know it has taken a long time, but you know, you only want to make this decision once. I only want to make this decision once as a councillor. After I make it, I don't want to have another conversation about it.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify a couple of points so that there's no misinformation being shared. From the feasibility study, the deficit on an annual basis, if you average it over the past years, was actually 8,900, not the 1,800. It's still substantially less than other airports that are operating under similar conditions. And I just wanted to mention that it's also in the report that the intention in 1995 to 97, when the airport was built and the group came to Wingham Council, was that the farmland would be purchased at the same time and was always intended to offset the operating expenses. It wasn't set, we didn't buy the farm and then think about putting in an airport. It was all at once, and I know that Mr. Thompson is in the audience, and I know that he was here at that time and can share those facts. But in fact, if you look back at old records, that's exactly how it was intended in the Schwab report from the engineers in the proposal that came to council to make the decision whether or not to build the airport. That's in that past report. So I just wanted to share those two facts that are in the feasibility study for clarity.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Brock?
I just want to, since I've been on council, I've viewed the airport as an important asset. But it's an asset that we've never figured out how to capitalize on. Our economic development process could very well use this asset as a very important bulwark of the whole thing. We haven't figured out how to do economic development either. So what I'm suggesting is that we continue to look at it as an asset, and we need to work hard to figure out how to capitalize on the economic development aspects or potential that we have of all kinds, and particularly how that airport could fit into that and expand on possibilities. So I continue to consider the airport an asset. It doesn't cost us much. We have an offset income, and it's still a bargain, but it's a potential.
Is there, I'm going to council. Is there anybody else wanting to speak right now? Because I want to leave the chair to speak on this issue myself. Please. You recognize me wanting to speak.
Lee Vincent, if you'd like to go ahead.
Thank you. That I'm going to speak strongly in favor of this. As Pat brought forward the thing that the farmland and the bush was purchased as part of the parcel for this airport to have offsetting money. I believe the rent of the farmland for operating expenses, and as we need capital expenses, there's every, I'll say, 12 to 20 years, depending on how heavily the bush is harvested. I believe that money, there's a second lift was mostly paid for out of a former logging of the bush. And I believe those two things make this asset that a lot of municipalities would love to have. We do not have a provincial highway, let alone be part of a 4-lane highway system. I think a number of things depend on our accessibility to the outside world. And I'm looking at not necessarily the next 5 years, but within the next 10 years, I believe there will be a lot more people flying, using planes, and they will. And maybe it's never going to be a great pay the bills itself, but it's coming close. And it's something that we have, and the licenses that this airport currently has, that we can do a certain amount of customs for DuPont when they want to fly into Pioneer. They can hop on a plane in Chicago, be up here in, what is it, just under an hour and a half. They can land, have a meeting, and they can be back long before supper time. That, in working in an economy, in the future economy, is one of the little notches that this airport gives us. And Lord knows, after going through the budget, there's a lot of things that aren't necessarily called municipal services that you have to have. But let's not sacrifice one that is a little bit of a beacon that we can build on, we can grow on. And unfortunately, I'll say, since the last election, we have not moved forward. There was the questions of, is it an asset to us? I believe the airport is definitely an asset. It's one of those things that we can build on, and the airport will be one of those things that the future is far more important than today. And if it doesn't cost us a lot through the last 5 years, so what if it costs us towards $9,000 a year? There's a lot of things that we as council put a lot more money into, and that, yes, there's maybe only a certain number have planes right now. I know in watching the miniature jets fly, the crowds that they bring, yes, it's a recreational activity, but it's one of those things that is recognized, I'll say, throughout North America and in some places in Europe, that the miniature jets are recognized for the rally they have here. I'm disappointed that we don't have more people attending that, but it's just one of those things. There's usually 2 or 3 other things happening the same weekend. But the old thing, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. This is an asset. I think we need to start making a decision on it and make it quickly to allow people that want to build hangars to let them go forward and build the hangars. The county is looking at it. Morris Turnberry, in talking to the individual councillors, are all looking at it completely different than the last term of council. We have a shared service agreement on public works and a number of other things. Maybe there's something that we could call shared services on the airport as to having some, I'll say, cash come from Morris Turnberry and an allowance for, if development happens there, they get tax money for it. And maybe there can be some kind of an agreement in that somehow that may come back into helping operate the airport to get it to a zero cost to the municipality. But we've got it. If we ever give it up, we won't get it back. And yes, NAV Canada has said we will have to take care of the navigation beacon being between 3,000 and 6,000 a year. But if we're going to have any, I'll say, emergency orange vehicles land in weather that they don't have sight lines, that beacon is the important thing for them to know how to use instrument landings. It's just too important to give up. Thank you. Ray?
Yeah, my comment was, and I guess we're going to go back to when I first came on council here, at the airport, and what the deficit was running at. And it was contested very well. that it was the cropland that was subsidizing the airport to keep it. I don't think that it was to sell the airport itself. It was to sell the land and have the money available for some sort of development. That's at that time. Now tonight we're coming up with stuff here now that was never mentioned about getting, like as Trevor said, getting the county on board or asking you people to operate. It's been an informative meeting. It's one of the best meetings I've been at because we've learned a lot here tonight that we haven't had feedback as far as I'm concerned. So yes, when can we get on track to approach the county? Like it's not happening. Because there was talk of this before, but it don't seem to be addressed at county level.
Yeah.
Sharon?
So it is in their plans
That's
for
what
this
you're
summer. They've included it in their strategy. And they are going to be considering it. I know that the warden has mentioned and spoken to us and is concerned about the disposal of the airport. And so, I think that we still have some consultation to do. Unfortunately, the group here is still wanting some answers. And we have held them off on hangar builds. And so I guess we really should have some discussion from council and get some firm direction on some of the items that have come up tonight. If you are seriously wanting to present this to Morris Turnberry Council for consideration as to whether they would contribute, perhaps we could get a motion of direction to bring that to the shared services table. We're never going to get action on these things unless we move forward. So,
Trevor was wanting to speak.
Yeah, I just have one small comment. So my comment to the council would be, if really the last thing we're waiting for is the county discussion. Is the county's discussion, because is the county's yes or no going to make or break what we do? If it's not, then I think to me, a decision could be made by next meeting on whether it's yes, we're going to continue to develop it, or no, look at the alternative, meaning to me, the alternative isn't to sell. The alternative is to find potentially another operator or something to that effect. But that's not where I'm looking at right now. What my operating is do we have to wait for the county to make the decision? Is that number so critical that we have to wait? I don't think it is. So, like I'm willing to accept the fact that I would have treated this as status quo operations. Like, I don't know why there's a lot of risks in municipality if we, by not allowing people to put on hangars. Like, it's more money for us if we decide to change our mind after. So I don't understand why there's some hesitation to continue to build. Like, if they continue to build and we were making decent revenue, why would we reject it? So to me it should have been status quo in my mind, that people should have, if they wanted to build, go ahead and build. But I think there's some hesitation on both sides too. But I think by next meeting, in my eyes, we should be able to make a decision one way or another on whether this is an asset we're going to continue to keep or it isn't.
Ray first.
I think it's a good discussion here tonight. But this is the first time that it's ever been brought to council that I'm aware of, that to even get the county involved in it. To even for council to know that the county is a possibility to get involved in it.
that was in the feasibility study that Pat brought forward as an option, that the county was going to be.
But to get the word that they are moving ahead on.
Yeah, so that was
Just in the feasibility study, but not doing anything. It's not good enough.
Brock and then Bill.
I just want to clarify what Trevor's points. I think I agree with him completely, but I just want to confirm it. I think what we're saying is that we are prepared as a council to commit to continue status quo, regardless of whether the county comes in or whether Morris Turnberry comes in with us. We're prepared to continue operation as in the past. We'll explore other options, but we're not going to pull back on that, so that we can give the users an assurance that things are going to remain, at least in the time being, as it has in the past.
Bill?
First question, sure. Do we have a timeline from the county when that discussion will take place and when it will be completed?
She has said this summer, so I don't have an absolute time frame. I think they're just starting to roll out their activities in their economic development strat plan. And so that was her general time frame, and she's gonna confirm with me when she knows more as to exactly when that work's gonna come forward.
Okay, can we then get some kind of, as soon as possible, timeline from them? And with regard to Councillor Seep's comment that we just allow them to continue, totally unfair to everybody. Part of their lease is if we let them build a hangar and this thing turns and goes the other way, we're obligated to buy that from them if they choose not to move it off that property. So to turn around and say, we're gonna say, yeah, go ahead, you wanna build a hangar, that obligates us to purchase it. Okay? So I don't think we can do that, but we definitely have to find some kind of a timeline here where we can sit down and say, guys, this is what's gonna happen. So I said, I would like to see group operated, okay? And that would make me very happy. And that the airport continues, but not necessarily as a federally licensed airport facility, but you can operate it as whatever you wish to. But we do have to give them a decision. But you can't just tell them to go ahead and start building hangars tomorrow. Okay? Not gonna happen.
Pat?
Okay, so just on the timing, it's always a challenge, and I know council's been told this or explained this before. There are two hangar builders that have their proposals into me that are ready to build. And this is this building season. So if we continue to delay and wait for Huron County's decision and wait for more information, we're gonna miss that window, and that would be unfortunate. If I just wanna go back to the report and read, option A was to continue to operate the Richard Levin Airport with no significant operational changes. However, there were 4 bullet points that we would continue to pursue. One of those being the economic development, working with the town of Goderich to see if there was a shared services opportunity with their manager, encourage growth and development that would fill the certain infrastructure we have, so the space that we have on our current taxiway, and then decide that future growth would require future investment. Retain an independent forester to really look at the tree lot. We could add to that something to the, include a shared services offer to Morris Turnberry, or present something to them, and include opportunities to go back to the committee to look at how they might not want to take over the operations. They all have their own businesses, but perhaps that there's other roles that this committee can play in the operations of the airport, because that is sort of the next step on this, was to decide how that commission works into our committee structure that we have developed over the past year. I'm hearing that there's a strong support for that potential, and we could come back on the 6th with further development of that potential option for council, if that's what you would like, so that you can move the decision forward on the 6th. And if there's anything missing from that, then please let me know.
Trevor?
So the part is that, and the reason why I'm saying this is why I've said what I've said, is because I don't think we've even given it a fair shot. We haven't provided enough to know whether that's a viable asset or not. It's kind of one of those, it's the orphan child that really hasn't been talked about or looked at. And we need to figure out whether we want that service or not. And my feeling is that service is important enough with the hospital we have here, with the economic development that we could potentially have. But we have to be, those things need to be on the top of the priority list of making it happen. We need plans, we need strategic plans that point out how are we going to accomplish said development to make this grow. If we don't have that, it's going to continue the way it is, and we're going to be having another conversation in 5 years when the deficit grows. So ultimately, at the end of the day, my position is have plan A, as Pat's talking about, but with a clear, distinct strategic plan, business plan, or model, or whatever you want to call it, to have that so that we can look at it every year to say, yep, we're on the right track, we're not on the right track. How do we change? How do we can't go about this halfway anymore. It either has to be all or nothing. So that's, my thing is going all in. That's where I'm going.
Deputy Reeve Campbell.
I'd like to see us sit down with the committee and council on a round table and discuss it. We've gone through some of these kind of discussions in shared services. But I think these are things, because we can have this meeting tonight, we can wait for a report till the 6th of June. We've already lost half a month. But these are things that we need to be moving on if we're going to move on and get it done. And I think by waiting to have the commission to have another meeting and get back to us, we've lost another month. And I'm retired, a month doesn't mean much anymore. But I think it's something that we need to move on. If we're serious about this, we need to be sitting down with the committee and just sitting down and talking things through. And I think some of these decisions can be made a lot quicker than what we are.
Okay. Henry?
I just want to say thank you, Pat, for making it clear to council or not as to how the airport was really purchased and operated. And just so you understand, the farmland, that you kind of want to keep that and keep all the revenue and give the airport to our committee. You have to understand something too, Councilor Knott, is that as we grow this airport, and you're saying $1,600 that per hangar that we're paying, we've lost 3 hangars already. We were over $1,800. Granted that it's $8,900, so or apologies for that. So taking into effect that we've already lost 3 hangars, that's $1,600 a piece per year. Having now plans there at Pat's office for building 2 more, I don't even know why it's being discussed anymore. It is so obvious. It is so obvious. Yes, I agree with Councilor, with Trevor, absolutely. But keep it going, but work together and create more revenue. It's enough. If you want to put it off again, I'm afraid we might even lose a very good tenant there right now. We don't want that. We've lost 3 this last year. We have pictures. We can show you new hangars. They've gone to Hanover. In 6 weeks' time, it was done. Paperwork was done. They're building. We've lost that. We've lost that money because council just waits and waits and waits. We're done. We're done. Thank you.
Okay, I will make a further comment without leaving the chair. And I have followed the airport committee for the last 10 years. The first part of it, I was just interested enough that I went to those meetings. Then I have been the appointed council person for the last 7 years. But if it would help the rest of council, I'm sure that we could have Chris, Henry, and a few of the other ones meet, but we've got to do it quickly. Trevor?
So to, I guess, go with the conversation, I'm willing to make a motion tonight that is to suffice to you, Reeve, that we continue operation of the airport on option A as the plan with a higher emphasis on strategic planning for that airport with the knowledge in the airport committee working together with council and staff to come up with a viable business solution with that airport. That is my motion.
I'll second
Okay. Councillor Knott,
I just want a little bit of discussion here. Let's make sure that we move forward, because one of the things that failed to happen in the past, there have been a couple of studies that were done, and Pat has those. If you want to read them and want to see them, I think there's 2 of them, correct, Pat? Sitting on the shelf where recommendations and so on were made, and nothing ever happened. That's the problem. What we don't need is to go round and round in circles. We need to make some decisions, okay? And if everybody's in favor, then I'm quite in favor of the motion, and let's get on and make the decision. Get everybody back on track.
okay. I will speak for some of these studies. It was the planning department had money for the studies. They wanted to do the studies. North Huron owns the airport. It is in another municipality. For taxation purposes, the other municipality gains all tax revenue. That is the big part of why those studies never produced any results, because we could not put a lot of money into development that we couldn't get any money back out of. I think with the shared services with Morris Turnberry, we are in a different era right now, and I believe that there are things that can be done. So I'm just prefacing why some of those studies sat on the shelf. Yolanda.
I would like to see Morris Turnberry brought to the table for those discussions in regards to sitting down with this group so that they could see from our perspective as well, and we can start working together to formulate a plan, and they should move forward with that.
And Sharon said that we can actually work it into shared service and have formal, in talking to most of the Morris Turnberry Council, there is a complete reversal of the attitude of the previous council, that we are in a new era, there's economic development happening, and they're looking forward to it. James.
I agree with Trevor's motion. If we need to put a timeline on it, let's get at it, get moving with it. Let's not wait a month, month and a half, 2 months. Let's get right at it.
Do you have a motion, Kathy? Can you read it?
I know. Correct me if I'm wrong here. That the council of the township of North Huron hereby continue operation of the airport under option A of the feasibility study with emphasis on development and working with the airport users to ensure the future growth and viability of the airport. What you said, Trevor?
That's exactly what I envisioned.
I'll ask Sharon, would that allow somebody that has plans in for a hangar to start or not?
You are approving option A,
Yes.
then I would say yes. You are deciding to retain ownership of the airport and that we are going to work to develop business at the airport. That is your decision. We're not revisiting this 2 months from now. And so we have a firm direction forward and we can begin hangar development.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Carried. Sharon, yes.
So we'll be in touch with the group to perhaps set up a meeting just to discuss some of those issues. And do we want all of council present?
Yes.
Okay. So that will, I would suggest we do a special meeting, and because we will have a quorum of council, that will have to be a public meeting. So we will schedule that and get back to you as soon as possible.
And Pat, do you have any comments? But if the airport committee could give a date when most of them could make it and get that back to us as soon as possible. They could do a straw poll, Pat?
I can check with Sharon as far as availability of council and send out a doodle poll, which I love to do. And my good pal down at the rec department, Denise, will get all that coordinated to schedule some times in the near future, right, James? To get that meeting on the table. And I would strongly also suggest that we invite all of the airport committee, not just the people who are here this evening. There are some that wanted to be here but had conflicts, as well as that would be including the Morris Turnberry councillor who is on the committee. So that would just be sort of my 2 cents comment to make sure that all parties are at the table. Unless Sharon feels that we should have other people from Morris Turnberry there as well.
I think we're gonna have a shared services meeting with them this week.
Okay.
And we should raise that with the committee because, as I mentioned, the warden was expressing some interest and he may wish to attend or have some other members of their council attend as well.
Okay. So that's directly, Pat?
It's been noted in the
Okay.
minutes, I'm quite sure, right, Richard?
Okay. Okay, thank you for the presentations on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving to 6.3.1, the Wingham Town Hall Theater, and the suggested resolution. The council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves project schedule and draft budget presented in this report and permits staff to proceed with the purchase and installation of the sprinkler system, fire door upgrades, emergency lighting, and engineering for the HVAC system. And the project expenses is estimated to be $52,250. And further, that the funds allocated for the project are coming from the donations made by the Wingham Town Hall Theater Committee from grants and private donations. And further, that the Wingham Town Hall Committee will return to council with an updated report in September 2016 prior to proceeding with the HVAC or any other portion of the project to confirm balance of spending to date and the balance of fundraising to date. And further, sometimes these don't want to pull up worth a diddle. And further, the council of the Township of North Huron will not open the theater until both fire code upgrades and the HVAC system is installed. The Town Hall Theater has committed to ensuring these are completed prior to that opening. And further, that the sprinkler system will be procured using the request for quotation process. You're moving, Councillor Knott, Deputy Reeve Campbell. I'm flustered. Seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Thank you. Thanks.
6.3.2 fitness equipment purchase. Suggested resolution that the council of the Township of North Huron hereby authorize North Huron staff to use the negotiated method for the purchase of 6 new pieces of cardiovascular fitness equipment, training equipment for the fitness center. And further, that the council of the Township of North Huron authorize the purchase of the new fitness equipment from Advantage Fitness Equipment, Inc. for the expense of $28,147.08. Decimal 08. This purchase includes Councillor Syke,
Yeah, I'll make the motion for discussion purposes.
seconder, Councillor Ritzman-Tenenga. Go ahead.
Through you, Reeve, to Pat, the only question I have is not with regards to the actual equipment we're buying, but more of the equipment we're getting rid of. Obviously, due to the age of years of this equipment, there's no trade-in value. But is there a sense where we talk about here this silent auction process or a submit sealed bids? I guess my question is there a reserved amount that is required in order for them to, like, obviously, if somebody puts in a bid for $1, that they're not going to get a piece of equipment for $1. Like, is there a reserve bid or a minimum bid that they need to provide in order to deal with administration, all that stuff that, you know, we're getting something out of this, not just, there is obviously still value there. So I want to make sure that we're getting the most value that we can. Obviously, trading we can't, there is no value there to anybody who wants it back. But to the general public, I want to make sure that we're getting the most value that we can.
Pat.
Yes, so I've asked our fitness supervisor to provide for me, through consultation with our equipment maintenance person, what a reasonable minimum bid would be based on our admin costs and things like that. But we also are very clear, they must sign a waiver that this is as is. If they get it home and it's not working, you know, it was working when it left the shop kind of thing. There's no returns, there's no warranty. So we can't set that too high, but I agree there should be, you know, maybe $100, depending on the piece of equipment, set a small minimum bid to ensure that our admin costs are at least covered for the trouble of putting it together, yes. Obviously, we hope some of it will go for a decent amount, more than you could buy this equipment for a home type use equipment from a store, but there are no guarantees. If we don't receive a minimum bid on something, then we will go to an avenue of perhaps there's a group, maybe community living or something, that would want the equipment donated to them at zero cost, just because they might like to use it, and maybe not. And if nobody wants one of the pieces of equipment, it will find a home at the landfill.
Councillor Syke.
So to me, I'm very hopeful, and I'm going to say this as much as I can, is that the landfill is the absolute last option. The fact that there's still money there, I don't want to see this stuff end up in the landfill. I don't know whether other municipalities may want it. I don't know. I think we need to have that conversation too. If it comes to that, you know, I think we need to really seriously consider before we decide to heave this into the landfill what we're going to. And I'm not suggesting that's what you would do. I'm just saying we need to reconsider that, you know, the landfill is not a viable option in my opinion.
And this will be sealed bids for it?
That's our
that you would be doing, so that if a councillor put in a sealed bid, they would be treated the same as anybody else if they were willing to pay the most?
I believe I've said that in here, but I think I wanted to omit staff, direct family of staff, and I don't know whether council included in that from bidding, because I don't want any perceived, you know, favoritism or awareness. I think that if we go first round and equipment is still sitting there, then I would open it up to any staff or council, but I think the public should have first opportunity, and we'll advertise heavily. We'll go 2 rounds if we have to. I mean, we don't want this equipment to end up at the landfill either, but the reality is it has very little value. It is unable to be traded in. there's parts unavailable for it, but for somebody in their home use, it might serve a purpose. And hopefully, we'll find someone who would like it to get some of it, but the actual value on it is zero.
Trevor?
So I like the option of the fact that it's open to the public with no staff or council or anything like that on round one. That seems to be a fair and appropriate, I think that we need to be clear on the reserve bid conversation. That needs to be very advertisable. Here it is. And any bid that's under those reserve bids are basically gone. They don't even accept. So I think we need to be very clear on that, and that equipment should find itself a great home.
Okay.
So are we going to make a motion to include this?
Are we willing to amend the motion to include those points?
Yes, I am.
Okay, we have the motion. All those in favor? Thank you. 6.3.3, Huron Pioneer Thrashers. And suggested motion is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby direct the clerk to prepare an authorizing bylaw for the June 6, 2016 council meeting to adopt the agreement to approve Huron Pioneer Thrashers and Hobby Association to erect a new shed at the Blythe Campground. Councillor Knott moving. Deputy Reeve Campbell seconding. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay. 6.6.1, relief of firefighters. And that, as some of you know, that Bruce Power made an offer to Huron, Bruce, and Grey counties that if their assistance was requested for the Fort McMurray area in Alberta, that Bruce Power would take care of chartering a flight and getting the people out of there. The motion is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approve 2 Fire Department of North Huron personnel to deploy to Fort McMurray, Alberta, if their assistance is requested. Councillor Ritzman-Ninga and Councillor Wadden. Councillor Syke.
It says 2 FDH personnel. I wonder if we need to be more clear. I know the conversation that David's saying is that there's 1 from Wingham and 1 from Blythe, but if none of them will go from Blythe, are we still allowing 2 to go from a station? I guess the question is, do we want to be very clear in the motion that says it has to be 1 from Blythe station, 1 from Wingham station, or not at all?
No,
The motion says Fire Department of North Huron.
well, just for clarity, we put this out to our personnel, and we had 11 personnel interested. We have 1 firefighter who 2 years ago worked out of Cochrane and actually went up in the Northwest Territories doing forest fire work, and so we put him on the list. The second member is a captain who happens to have a forestry and logging business, which was deemed a relevant skill. It just so happened that 1 is from each of the stations, and based on their skill sets beyond just fire activity in our area, those are the 2 that were selected. I'm not sure that they're really going to go at this point, but we picked 2 personnel based on skill sets that had above and beyond routine fire suppression.
Sorry, so they've already been selected and they're 1 of each. So it's not as if you make this motion, it's not as if one of them backs out and another one's going to actually go from the same station.
And the second reality is, and I think it's a very valid question. The second reality for us is that we won't let personnel go to Fort McMurray that could jeopardize the safety of our own residents. And that's nothing against the folks in Fort McMurray, but our first priority has to be the residents that we're to protect. And should one of these individuals back down or have a change in circumstances, the selection of the next person to go would reflect the needs of our people first and then Fort McMurray second.
Good, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? All in favor? Carried. Moving to 6.7.1, the Shared Services Project, and suggested motion that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accepts the report of the CAO for information purposes, and further that the Council accepts the recommendation of the Shared Services Committee and directs the CAO to follow up with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing to obtain their assistance in developing performance measures for the Shared Services Pilot Project. Councillor Ritzman-Daninga and Councillor Knott. Discussion? Councillor Wadden?
I'm just curious whether, while it's pretty clear that they don't have any funding available to support this kind of activity, it appears to be very unique project work. And is there a feeling that in the future there might be consideration for supporting that kind of innovation?
I think so. They said that there isn't a pocket of money available right now, but that there has been significant discussion about the project, and the minister is himself interested. He considers it a unique approach compared to the forced amalgamations of the late 90s, where communities can retain their own identity, but yet take advantage of the opportunity to partner and save costs and deliver services more efficiently. So they're seeing it as a model that they would like to highlight across the province as a best practice. And so they definitely want to be involved. And the minister said, contact them and see in what way you could support them. And so they have offered some expertise and assistance in helping us to develop these performance measures, to be able to take this information and use it as a best practice across the province, and also to be able to show our ratepayers whether we've been effective in implementing the project.
Good, thank you.
And I would say that they are quite willing to use some of their staff time to help with the performance measures, so that while there's no actual cash, that the staff are quite willing to assist in where they can.
That's an important value.
Okay. Motion on the floor, all in favor? Carried. Okay. No correspondence, so that goes to moving to council reports. 8.1, the Reeves activity report. I'll go in backwards order. But at 4 o'clock today, I attended a meeting in Central Huron with Central Huron, ACW, and North Huron over possible extension of Union Gas services to Auburn from Blythe. And that Councillor Syke was at the Union Gas presentation at Roma Good Roads. Much of it was the same, and that as soon as the Ontario Energy Board brings down a ruling as to possibly changing some of the rules as to how financing of extra line goes in, and that Union Gas has a presentation into that, There's how that will work out, that it's just keeping the three municipalities that are involved in Auburn up to speed as to how things are going, and if there's anything that we see that we can assist in helping our residents in Auburn or along the way between Blythe and Auburn, that it was asked that we would possibly relay that back to Union Gas, so it could be part of presentation at the Ontario Energy Board in favor of that being one of the 29 projects that they are possibly looking at as starting projects to get things done. Is that a fair assumption, Sharon?
Yes.
Okay. And before that, I had 2 high school civics classes this afternoon. The one that was supposed to come this morning is actually coming tomorrow morning for me to give a starter course in municipal government as to the rules, regulations, the way we do things, and the staff that we have and how we direct it, how the money is derived that we spend in our budget, so that it's sort of a fun exercise. I enjoy it. Going back to Saturday evening, the first tasting for Cowbell Breweries went very well. There was 1,005 tickets sold. For which was the maximum. It was a sellout crowd. Things went very well, and it was very nice to see every municipality in Huron County represented by some of their council members and residents. And I know a number of members of both the main political parties, provincially and federally, were all there, all able to have a good evening together, so that was kind of nice. I think I'll let it rest at that, but there's joint services meetings that are ongoing for the Joint Services Committee, but I think that's better to announce that to council before I say anything more about what's going on there. So I will go to the council members for anybody that has things to bring forward. Councilor Ritzman-Dominga.
The Alice Munro Festival of the Short Story is happening in 2 weeks, the first weekend in June. So we're getting into the home stretch of all the planning and stuff. As it's been noted in the press, we're very excited that Robert Atwood is opening the festival this year. And there's a number of other fantastic authors who are coming. 2 specifically will be doing some workshops up at the Effie Medill for the LGBT community, and that's very exciting. And for us and for that group of students. And the gala is going to be fantastic. It's going to be featuring some local flavors from around the county to really showcase what we have to offer here. So there are readers and writer classes on sale until the 20th. So if you are a reader or a writer and you want to get a whole weekend pass, I encourage you to do that on the 20th.
Thank you for very good report. Others?
Just a point of interest, 2 weekends ago, we have a county forest just down the road from us, and we had two groups of teenagers camping in the pine forest with fires going, and they had been in there. They had their tent set up. Our fire chief was notified, and he went down to look it over. Could have been a very serious situation. I don't think these young people realize just how they had put their own lives in jeopardy by having bonfires in a pine forest with all kinds of needles. And I think it wouldn't hurt us to send a letter to the county and have some signage put up on that property.
Going to our fire chief,
To that end, I emailed back and forth with Huron County Forestry, and they'll be putting up signs at all of their forests. They're working on signage right now. They'll say no campfires. We did ask him, likewise, as we advised you, if there is a controlled burn or open air burn issue, to call the North Huron Fire Department's open air burn 24-hour number, and they'll get a hold of the on-call chief this weekend's meet. And we will follow up and make sure that any issues are dealt with. But you are quite correct. A lot of these forests, it looks like it'd be a lot of fun to fire, but things are surprisingly dry. You really don't want to burn down forests too badly or see people get injured.
Councillor Syed.
It's not really community council information. I did say a few months ago that I would be bringing back a notice of motion with regards to the parking situation at what would now be the Wingham Medical Clinic. So I am going to make a notice of motion to request staff, in conjunction with the hospital, getting comments from the hospital CEO with regards to what my recommendation would be: no parking on either side of the street from on John,
Okay.
from Francis to Carling Terrace, in the times from 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. or whatever the time frame it is during school hours. There's a concern about some school safety there as kids are walking to and from school, and the sun is not a friend at that time of morning. So this has been brought up by a couple of times by some ratepayers. So and I happen to drive that quite frequently, and I noticed the same thing. So I would there is some conversation with the hospital CEO that the parking lot that they have proposed in that site plan, their conversation is maybe we can have it in conjunction with the opening of that parking lot, so that the I guess you can force them to use it in the sense that but I think that there still needs to be some conversation between the director of public works and the hospital to ensure that accessibility and all that stuff needs to be looked at. So I request that to be a notice of motion going forward.
Okay.
So you will prepare the notice.
I will prepare it, yes, and send it in.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, is there anything for 8.3 requests by members? Okay, 9 was the notice of motion that Trevor has done. Moving to bylaws. If I can get the proper one up. And the bylaw number 50, 2016, being a bylaw to authorize the Raven clerk to sign on behalf of council a grant contract between the Ontario Petroleum Foundation and the Corporation of the Township of North Huron to deliver improved infrastructure with a $30,000 grant over 11 months to install a sprinkler system in the Wingham Town Hall Theatre, to be introduced, read, first and second time.
So moved.
Councillor Sype, and seconded by Councillor Ritzman-Taninga. All in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 50, 2016, being a bylaw to authorize the Weaver clerk to sign on behalf of council a grant contract between Ontario Trillium Foundation and the Corporation of the Township of North Huron to deliver improved infrastructure with a $30,000 grant over 11 months to install a sprinkler system to the Wingham Town Hall Theatre and to be read a third and final time, signed by the Weaver clerk and engrossed in the bylaw book. Councillor Vodden, Councillor Knott, all in favor? Carried. Okay, bylaw number 51, 2016. Being a bylaw to authorize the Weaver clerk to sign on behalf of council a land lease agreement between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and William Versteeg for the leased lands at 165 Curry Line for the 2016 calendar year, to be read a first and second time. Deputy Reeve Campbell and Councillor Hallahan, all in favor? Carried. And that bylaw 51, 2016, being a bylaw to authorize the Weaver clerk to sign on behalf of council a land lease agreement between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and William Versteeg for the lease of lands at 165 Curry Line for the 2016 calendar year. Be read a third and final time, signed by the Weaver clerk and engrossed in the bylaw book. Councillor Knott, Councillor Ritzman-Taninga, all in favor? Carried. That bylaw number 52, 2016, being a bylaw to authorize the Weaver clerk to sign on behalf of council an agreement for the purpose of operating the Optimus Ballpark Snack Bar for the 2016 season between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and the Wingham Scouts, be introduced and read first and second time. Councillor Sype, Councillor Ritzman-Taninga, all in favor? Carried. And the bylaw number 52, 2016, being a bylaw to authorize the Weaver clerk to sign on behalf of council an agreement for the purpose of operating the Optimus Ballpark Snack Bar for the 2016 season between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and the Wingham Scouts, be read a third and final time, signed by the Weaver clerk and engrossed in the bylaw book. Councillor Hallahan, Councillor Vodden, all in favor? Carried. And that bylaw number 53, 2016, being a bylaw of the Corporation of the Township of North Huron to regulate the construction or alteration of any entranceways, private roads, or access to municipal roads, be introduced and read a first and second time. Councillor Knott, Deputy Reeve Campbell, all in favor? Carried. And that bylaw 53, 2016, being a bylaw of the Corporation of the Township of North Huron to regulate the construction or alteration of any entranceways, private roads, or access to a municipal road, be read a third and final time, signed by the Weaver clerk and engrossed in the bylaw book. Councillor Hallahan and Councillor Vodden, all in favor? Carried. Is there any announcements? Other business? Is there a closed session?
Yes, please.
There is a closed session for 13, so I will take a motion to go in camera. Councillor Sype, Councillor Vodden, all in favor? We will have a short recess before going in camera.